of JavaFX. It uses FXML, the introduction. I'm going to make a file in this same spot. Now, I'm not making a JavaFX application. I'm just going to make a Java class. And what do I want to call this? I want to call this button label demo. All right, so let's make a new file, button label demo. Button label demo. Okay, so here it is. Now, there are some things that we're going to do, but so here's the basic code here. Now I'm going to add to it, but you'll notice, as you saw in the previous video, you need a scene. You need to put that scene on the stage by setting the scene. You need to show it. You can set the title and play with that. Now we're just going to add just a couple lines of code, and you'll see some more button pressing and label changing, but this time it will be without FXML, which I think this is important as well. Okay, so if we're going to do this, and again, we're doing this on the fly here, we're going to make a button, and we'll say click me again. So we're going to make a button, and that's in the start. So we're overriding the start method. You should always write the start method. This is what happens when literally things start up in JavaFX. All right, so we're going to make a button. Let's also make a label. Okay. So now we've constructed, just like you're used to in before you started doing this funky stuff, we're going to also have to do this. We need to make sure, you'll see that some things are a little weird here. We need to make sure that we extend application. That gives us a JavaFX application. So now there's no more weird errors, and now it's doing some more imports. Okay, so we've made a button, we've made a label, we're extending application, so we know that we're using a full-fledged, we're full-fledged into JavaFX. Well, we've made a button, we've made a label. Now what I'd love to do is I'd like to set an action. When the button is pressed, so I'll dot it, I'm going to set the action. So this is set on action. What I'm going to do right now, I'm going to use a good old Lambda method. And we will talk about these more soon. But what I'm going to do is when someone presses the button, I'm going to take my label and I'm going to set its text to the button was pressed. Okay. Cool. So upon starting up, we're making a button, we're making a label, and we're going to listen. We're going to listen for this action, and when this action happens, when the button is clicked, we'll change the text. This is, again, using something called a Lambda function. Lambda function. It's nice, it's clean, it's easy, it's compact, and I'll do a whole video on Lambda functions in the future. But you're going to be using them a lot. Okay, so you have two objects, a button and a label, and when the button is pressed, we'll set the text to the button was pressed. Now, you always have to do this. You sort of saw this last time as well. You've got to have some sort of a pane here. Typically, people will call it root, and so we'll make a stack pane. Again, this is sort of just like canned stuff that you always need. You'll always need this method, root.getChildren. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the objects that we've made. We're going to add all of them. We're going to add the button and the label. That's very, very important. Let's not do that, just to see what happens. Okay, so let's run this. Button label demo. Let's see what happens. Oh, line 37, we've got an error. Get rid of that brace. Okay, now let's see what happens. There's no button. There's no label. Why not? Well, you have to add all the objects that you want. You have to add them to the stack pane. So now that we use that, we'll be able to see it. Okay, so now this looks very similar to what you saw with FXML, but now when I click this, boom, the button was pressed. Now, this looks kind of junky. Can we resize it? It seems like they're both right on top of each other. So, you know what we could do? We could kind of move this down. There's a bunch of different ways that we can do this, but let's just push it down for now. All right, so now the button was pressed and that's underneath. So we could actually, we kind of play with this a bit more. Like, just like I said in the previous video, you could make multiple buttons. I think that would be a good thing for you to do. You could have different things happen when different buttons are pressed.